How my journey began. It's graduation time. Family is very important to me, including my puppies. The Marine Corps played a huge role in my life and allowed me to be ambitious, inspiring, a mentor, and achieve all of my goals. As a financial expert, I've received multiple awards, done various events as a guest speaker all over the U.S. with my platform of creating healthy financial habits, along with having my own business, all leading up to my show. Come along for the journey.
Hello, Gems, and welcome. For the month of March, we are highlighting the achievements of women in various industry fields. Here are some statistics about the career our guests have chosen. According to the U.S. News, the average annual cost of a public out-of-state law school is right around $41,000 compared to a much higher private law school at around $49,000, and a public in-state law school average around $28,000. Even for the least expensive option, in-state public law school, the cost over 3 years is right around $85,000. So this by no means is something you should do if you just want to think about it. Black students make up about 7.9% of total incoming law students as of 2019. Black females make up right around 2.55% of lawyers across the United States. The average salary of a lawyer varies from right around $75,000 and up depending on their practice, location, experience, and other variables. A district attorney has immense power in influencing an individual's decision to enter into a plea deal or take their case to trial. More than 90% of all criminal cases end in a plea deal. The district attorney has the power to offer a sentence to the individual charged with the crime. This, my fellow gems, is the prestige and power of a district attorney. Now for today's guest. She was born in Kingston, Jamaica. Growing up, she wanted to be either a fighter pilot, or a lawyer. Her favorite book is 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. She is a Marine veteran who served over 7 years with 2 deployments to Iraq, and currently she resides in New York. Let's welcome my longtime friend, fellow Marine, and Queens District Attorney Suzanne Bettis to the show. Welcome, Suzanne.
Hey, and just to correct this, assistant district attorney. The district attorney is my boss.
No, thank you. Let me put that in there. We're not taking nobody's titles away. I just know she do prestige stuff. So assistant district attorney.
I need that woman to keep on signing my checks.
Yes, we're not gonna take away none of your income. I love it. And so, Gems, when I say she's a longtime friend, I've been knowing Suzanne since 2003. And we go way, way, way back. She is a phenomenal individual. Being able to watch her bloom and grow into the phenomenal, I keep saying that, woman that she is now, working as the Queen's Assistant District Attorney. So enough about that and me, my giggles about this. Let's get down to business. So we want to know, what made you pursue a career in the law field? Tell us about this.
Well, wow. Like I said, it's something I always thought about. The fighter pilot thing was not going to work since my eyes are bad and I have contacts in.
Right.
So they were going to be like, no, Miss Bettis, that's not going to work. My mother, though, when she first came to the U.S., she was a legal assistant for J.P. Morgan Chase in New York for a long time.
Nice.
And she was always in the international division and like rose to the success levels of dealing with high-end clients. And it was just so interesting, always watching her work and study. She would take me to work with her. And I just loved it and just the nuances of it. So I kind of grew up learning the law, and then I just wanted to be able to do it myself.
Absolutely. So leaving the Marine Corps, graduating Kennesaw State, and then how did that kind of go? Because you graduated and then, we had a few things that kind of altered your course.
Yes, ma'am. So the Marine Corps, I was there for 7.5 years. And it was a lot of breaking in between because I was a reservist. And of course, they get you in the beginning. They're like, yeah, you're going to be at home the whole time.
Right.
And then in the summer, you do your little 2 weekends, your 2 weeks, and then you're in school. Yeah. So when I actually got to my first duty station in Georgia, because I was originally in Virginia, and that's where I was supposed to be a reservist, but I wanted to go to college in Georgia.
Yeah.
So they switched my MOS to food service,
Uh-huh.
because I can't cook.
Yes, we can.
So I got to Georgia, and it wasn't, I did my first stint of college at University of West Georgia at the time. I did one semester. And by that November in 2004, I was on the deployment list.
Right.
I was on the deployment list. And it was a very interesting decision to start down that journey, because the weekend or the month prior, I had already put in my package to go to OCS so I could be a lawyer.
I remember that.
And I remember during my birthday weekend, it was in November 2004, my package was in, but then the deployment list came out and I wasn't on the list. And I said, oh my God, I can't let my Marines go out there without me. I was having this kind of conundrum. And I went to my sergeant major after having, them pulled a million strings to get me into OCS, and begged them to let me go on the deployment list.
Right.
And they shot me down, and they were like, HE Hockey 6, no, go sit down somewhere. And then I guess they really needed the bodies, because the next thing I know, I was in the middle of my algebra class at school, and they called me from supply and said, how far away from the base are you, Bettis? And I said, an hour. And they said, get in a car and get to the base because you're on the deployment list. And I was like, say what? It was crazy, but
Yeah.
I got one semester in. I was gone the whole next year.
Mhm.
I came back, thankfully, and I started up in school again because they held my spot at the University of West Georgia.
Right.
I was working corrections in the meantime. I was at Phillips State Prison in Beaufort, Georgia for a while. And I just I didn't really like it. And I was kind of missing my deployment life too. I didn't know really what was going on. So I signed up again to deploy again. This time though, with a better plan. I was able to continue my scholastics while I was deployed during my second deployment in 2007, because my school allowed for virtual classes.
Yeah.
So I was taking 2 classes while I was sitting in Fallujah, and my master sergeant and my sergeant were my proxies for my tests and stuff like that. It was an interesting thing, but I didn't want to slow down my educational progress while I was deployed. And it worked to my benefit because I didn't have to spend a lot of money. And when I came back the second time, I just full-fledged I quit my job as a corrections officer, full-fledged went to Georgia Perimeter College, finished out my associates. And then in that next year, in 2010, transferred to Kennesaw State University. I made sure all my credits transferred over so I didn't have to waste any more money. Used my GI Bill and I finished my bachelor's in a year because I wanted to condense as much as possible. So I took classes in the summer, and also I was getting BAH. So if I wasn't in school, I wasn't getting any money.
Right.
So I did all of that. And towards the end of my bachelor's, I really started thinking about law school again or going back into the Marine Corps. So I took the LSAT. I did poorly on it twice, but I was good enough to get into New York Law School on a contingent here in Tribeca, New York. And once I finished their protocols prior to the fall semester, I was in there like swimwear and never really looked back.
I love it. So I always like to tell the gems about the journey. So you passed the summer courses, you got the contingent letter. They're like, oh, you did it. Now you can come. And then leaving Georgia and going to New York. I love the story. Every time I hear it, I'm always like, I remember this. Like we were all thinking you were gone and you were still in Georgia. So tell us that, because I love for them to know that it wasn't just a and then B and then work. It was, we had some stuff.
It was not easy at all. Literally, after I graduated with my bachelor's, like I said, that money cuts off.
Right.
So I had to get like a little side job working for like Georgia Power or something like that. And I had given up my apartment because I knew I was hedging all my bets on this law school thing. I was
Right.
busting my butt and I was making this little bit of part-time money. So I was staying in a local hotel, me and my dogs and my mom, who's disabled, and I was supporting her for pretty much my entire military career. And still
Right.
now she lives with me here.
Right.
So it was me, my dog, and my mom in a little hotel room for about a month or so
Yeah.
until I got that "you're good to go" letter.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have any money. The money that I had saved up was enough for gas and tolls to get to New York and to pay for the rental.
Right.
So I literally enlisted like one of my friends from work to help me offload the U-Haul stuff, offload my stuff into the U-Haul. I put my car on the back of like a trolley on the back of the truck. So I'm driving this 16-foot truck with my car being towed on the back, you know, um, and Georgia didn't want me to leave. Georgia did not want me to leave. I am thoroughly convinced because 45 minutes into the drive up north, I was up by probably Gwinnett County
Yeah.
when I look in the rear view, the side view mirror, and all I see is smoke,
Yeah.
white smoke coming from the back of the car. And I was just like, what is that? And I see cars behind me going like this. So I'm like, oh my God, I lost my car on the highway. That thing's probably tumbling behind me.
Right.
And I'm panicked. So I pull over. Mind you, I'm doing this drive all by myself.
Yeah.
I haven't done this before. And I get out, and the axle underneath my car had split and twisted and broken. So I could have lost my car,
Right.
and the entire truck could have flipped with me, you know.
Right.
So it was crazy. So, like I said, 45 minutes into the drive, everything came to a screeching halt. I was probably out on that side of the road in the hot Georgia sun, as we know, for hours. It was hours. I called the rental company. They were heeing and hawing about coming to kind of rescue me. I called my car insurance. They're the ones who definitely put me up in a hotel,
Yeah.
and that happened to be right off of the exit that I was in front of. They're the ones, because I was towing my car. They were like, we'll cover, getting your car serviced and all of that stuff. They were amazing. But they were the ones who really looked out for me. So definitely a shout out to that insurance company is why I'm still with them. But budget finally the following morning brought me a new trolley to put my car on.
Yeah.
It had like 4 flat tires. So I was out in the Georgia sun again, switching out the tires.
Switching out tires.
Did not want me to leave. And I finally got to get on the road probably by like noon the following day. But I was rushing against the clock because I had an orientation in New York
Right.
the following week. So I finally get up to New York. By the time I finally get up to New York, it is pouring, raining outside. And I'm hauling this truck, and you can't drive on certain bridges.
Yeah, with the truck, right.
So I had to take the extra long route into Long Island. But I finally got there. Thank God, everything was good. But I literally now needed to recoup that money. And I called the company, and I was just like, look, you almost killed me. You almost made me lose my car.
Right.
You want some really bad press. I was using my lawyering skills already. I said,
already in
bed. Really bad press about trying to kill a Marine Corps veteran on her way to law school. Guess what? You're going to run me my money back.
Right.
And they sure did. The next day, they ran me my money back, and they also covered moving expenses that I would have incurred if I had gotten there on time and had the person move me into my apartment. So it was a crazy journey, but literally I didn't have any money, and that little bit of money that I recouped back got me to that following Monday because I didn't have any food, all of that. I just had my stuff. So it was really a journey. It was not easy at all. And that money had to stretch until school started because my GI Bill benefits didn't kick in again
Right.
until school began. And of course, it doesn't start on day one. You know,
Right.
you give the VA something to do, they do it 2, 3, 4 weeks down the line. So it was a journey. And thankfully, one of my cousin's friends, she had loaned me, I think it was like $2,000 to $3,000 just to do the contingency course the summer prior. So
Right.
I needed that VA money because I wanted to make sure I paid her back in a
Right.
timely manner. So I had people in my corner. It
Yes.
was it was but it was rough.
Yeah.
It was rough.
And it's
I
just,
was trying not to remember those memories, but okay, Jewel.
I know, speaks to your determination to follow your passion and to leave Georgia. Georgia, we didn't want you to stay. We
Yeah.
was like, where's she at? I think that's a sign for her to stay. And you were like, no, that's a sign for me to continue going.
Right?
I'm going to keep going. And,
I was like,
200,
I didn't have a I didn't have a choice because what was I going to go back to in Georgia?
right,
I didn't have an apartment at that time.
right.
I didn't have a job anymore. I was already done with all of my scholastics down there. My next move was in New York, and come hell or high water, I was getting there,
You was
period.
gonna get there. Yep, $200 just to cover gas,
Yeah.
tolls. That's it. And I always tell my gyms that because people think, oh, she probably had this huge fortune in the bank. No, like a lot of times these stories start out with no, no, no. It was just barely enough to get me to the next stop and get you going. So now that you're in New York, you got in, you're in school. Explain the process of how law school. A lot of us don't know, how this goes. Like your first year.
Okay, so traditionally law school is 3 years. Some schools now have opted for like a 2-year accelerated program for some people, but I went for 3 years. Um, and it's broken up. 1L a year is most of your basics. You take 12 to 14 credits depending upon what you really want to take, but it's all standard stuff in your first year. Constitutional law, criminal law, stuff like that, evidence and those kind of classes. And how it's set up is you sit for the class and there's only one exam at the end. That's it.
Right,
So you got to pay attention. You're reading through case law and all of those different things. They're really what they're doing in your first year is rewiring your brain of how you think. Now think
right,
you're 20, 30, and some of my colleagues in law school were 60 going to law school for the first time. And can you imagine
right.
you've gone your whole life thinking and moving a certain way, and now these people, you're paying these people to literally
Yeah,
rewire how you look at the world and how you interact with the world. So that's why law school, the first year especially, is difficult for some people because some people just can't wrap their head around doing things a little differently.
right.
There's a high rate of dropout in the first year of law school. So once you get through the first year, you're pretty much you understand how the process works. You understand how to take your exams. And at the end of the year, the exams are all anonymous. So you're given like an exam number. Your professor does not know whose test they're grading. And when you get your scores, you get your scores. That's it. There's
Yeah,
no parlaying with the professor about why I got this and can I get extra credit. That's it.
right, right,
You're
right,
done. So, and depending upon how well you do, law schools are people want to be in the top 5%, 10%,
right,
20%, because it kind of colors the rest of your law school journey. And it also is attached to whether you get any kind of scholarships or keep scholarships. Certain people have to stay within their 10% or 20% or 15% to remain to keep their scholarships. So thankfully, the VA was paying for my school
good, good, good.
after some hard fought battles, because of course the school wanted to play slick with me for a little while, and
Right.
they got what the rental company got when they tried to cross me too. So I started in the evening division. Certain schools they don't have an evening division, but I went to a school that predominantly focused on like middle class working
Yeah.
students. And even though it's a private school, there's a day division and an evening division. So you can work and go to law school at night.
Nice.
It's very tough, but a lot of people do it. And it's usually evening classes, starting from 6 or sometimes 5 o'clock, after the workday
Yeah, after
ends,
work. Mm-hmm.
and to the evenings. So my first year was evening division, but I was doing so well, and I knew if I stayed in the evening division, my benefits would run out a lot quicker. So
Right.
I needed to switch again, and I switched to the day division so I could take more classes,
Yeah.
and get done quicker, and take classes in the summer. So I was consolidating the time. So technically, I got finished with law school in 2 years. But I was like, why should I get out of here?
Right.
Why should I get out of here now? I'm still making money. As long as I stay here,
Right.
I'm making money. So the VA is paying me a stipend every month while I'm in law school. And I was getting my disability benefits from the VA. So I was collecting two checks at
Yes.
once and didn't really have to come out of pocket. So I saved that money. I paid off my car that almost tumbled down the Georgia highway.
Georgia Highway, right?
Paid that car off with some of that money because I really didn't want the debt.
Right.
And I continued on. My last year of law school, I was in the Manhattan District Attorney's office doing a clinic for a while. And during that last year is when students really start to hone in and focus on where they want to go.
Yeah.
So your first year is all the fundamentals. Your second year is when you start to specialize in the field of law that you really are interested in. You take those kind of courses. So I took a lot of criminal law, criminal procedure courses, and did some internships with judges in the city. And then my final year was my clinic, was a lot
Yeah.
of practical application. And then I started interviewing for positions.
Yeah,
So
tell us about how the interview process goes, because
well,
it's
it
one of
is
those things that you
daunting.
said, right? It's not like a normal interview that
Yeah.
you're used to. This is completely different. Like, I had no idea there were rounds, like,
Yes.
that can last weeks.
Yes. So the interviewing process for legal jobs is very daunting. Now, understanding the market saturation in New York is already
Right.
high. There's a lot of lawyers here already.
Mm-hmm.
So you're fighting with the people who graduated before you who still don't have any jobs. And you're fighting with the people from your class
Yeah.
that are looking for jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And you're fighting with people coming from out of state who
Mm-hmm.
want to come here and work in New York.
Yeah.
So it is very competitive to start working as a lawyer in New York. I put in applications at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office and the Queens County District Attorney's Office, where I am now. They work on a round system. So your first round is usually an introduction.
Yeah.
Why do you want to be a lawyer? Why do you want to be a prosecutor in particular? Why do you want to be in our office as a prosecutor in particular? And that's them trying to kind of feel out if
Yeah.
your heart is really in it, or are you trying to just do it for the public interest money and get your loans paid off after 10 years,
Right.
Because as a prosecutor, you're not getting paid the big bucks. You're not getting paid the private law firm 100,000 or
Right.
80K out of the gate kind of money. So they want to make sure that you're not going to just take the 3 years that you start with, because usually once you sign on to an office, you are on a 3-year employment contract.
Right.
So you can't leave before then, or else you're technically fired.
Right.
So they lock you into a 3-year employment contract in the beginning. So they kind of feel you out. And then if they like you, they pass you on to round two. Round two is usually a panel interview. It's usually 2 or 3 attorneys from the office. They ask you some of the same kind of preliminary questions. And then they go into things called hypotheticals. The hypotheticals are just random scenarios that they pick. Sometimes they're not so random. Sometimes they're based off of their own experiences that they've had as attorneys in the office.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to test your ethics. They're trying to test whether you have basic knowledge of criminal law. They're trying to test your morals. They're trying to test to see whether or not you're a team player.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these things. They want to also understand whether you can spot the legal issues and what your thought process and your analysis for getting to your final answer, or what you feel comfortable doing in the end. And that kind of shows them whether or not you're cut out for this,
Right.
and they can train you
Right.
and close the gap, or you just playing games.
Right. Right.
So that's how a lot of people get weeded out in the second round. And then the third round is usually another panel interview
Woo.
similar to the second round sometimes. And they're not like one after the other. So you'll do
Right.
your first round and maybe 2 or 3 weeks or a month will go by.
Right.
And then you'll do your second round and then there's a gap again.
Right.
Um, and then I know my final round at the Queens District Attorney's Office was an opening statement, and it's video recorded and you're presenting it in front of two people. So you go to the office having written it or memorized it, and you present it, and they videotape you to see how you do on camera, see how
Yeah.
you would present a case in front of people, and then they evaluate you based on that. But they give you the fact pattern
Right.
ahead of time, so you can do with it what you want,
Mhm.
within reason, of course. And I just kind of made it my own. I think I remember my fact pattern was like a drug case or something like that,
Right.
and I did like extra research about how cocaine metabolizes in the blood system and this, that, and the other,
Right.
and threw that in. And once I was done with my rounds in Queens, I was doing the same rounds at the Manhattan DA's office. So I was interviewing with both of them at the same time. And once I got my offer from Queens, they called me, I think, on a Friday, and I was so excited. I wasn't even living in New York at the time. I had moved into Bayonne, New Jersey during my second year of law school so I could be closer to downtown
Yeah.
Manhattan, and it was cheaper.
Right.
It was cheaper. So I got my offer. I was so excited, and then I had to tell Manhattan, because you have to let the other offices
Right.
know whether you've accepted a position or not, or if you've gotten an offer. So I called Manhattan and I said, "Hey, I got an offer from Queens. I have about a week to let them know whether I'm going to accept it or reject it." And I think I was on my second, or I think I was on my third round interview or second round interview, and they were like, "Come in tomorrow. We want to do your next round." And I was like, "Okay." So I was doing my clinic upstairs, I think on the
Right.
ninth floor, and during the afternoon, I had to go and do my interview for my final round or my third round, and I did it, and I walked out and I was like, "Oh, that was bad."
Right. Right.
It
Right.
was bad. I didn't feel good about it at all. I was like, "Yeah." They were asking me about how I felt about Queens and all of those things, and I was just like, I like the office, and I had spoken to assistant district attorneys in Manhattan and Queens to try to figure out where I would best fit in.
Right. Right.
But I did my third round with them. Yeah, I did my third round with them, and then I walked out and I was like, "They're not gonna hire me." And I checked my voicemails after I came out from that interview with Manhattan, and it was a voicemail from the recruiting office in Queens. And the recruiting manager, she left me a voicemail and she said, "Miss Bettis, we know that you're supposed to be doing your third round with Manhattan today, and we hope you bomb it and do horribly so you can come and work for us." I was cackling so hard. I said, "Wow." It made me smile after having that
Yes.
experience. I said, "You know what? It, if they roll like that, I probably want to work there.
Yes. You finally.
They're not
Yeah.
shy about what they want and the people that
Yeah.
they want." And then they invited me in the next Monday to kind of seal the deal with me. They were like, "Come in." They treated me to coffee and all of these different things and showed me around the office. And I had my acceptance letter in my hand for that Queen's position, but I wanted to kind of see how far they would go and how they were going to treat me. They pulled out all the stops, and at the end, I handed them my acceptance letter because Manhattan really wasn't giving me an offer, and I'm happy with my decision. I don't regret it whatsoever. It's been a
Absolutely.
great journey at Queens. The people there are amazing. I've learned so much over these last like 6 years now, going
Yeah.
on 7. Um, it's very collegial atmosphere. I
Yeah.
love it, and I love being a prosecutor. So I've been there for the last 6 years, and it's been a journey. It's been awesome.
Absolutely. And real quick, let everyone know how your mortuary affairs experience has kind of helped you in the Homicide Investigation Bureau and being an advisor to the
Yeah.
NYPD, your search warrant, speaking to witnesses, because they don't understand mortuary affairs in the Marine Corps. It's intense. We did a
Yeah.
lot. So
So
using
I,
that experience.
yeah. So a lot of service members never know how their experiences in the service translate over. And I always hear something like, well, we did security, so maybe I have to, and no knock on police officers or
Right,
security
right,
folks. Sometimes they limit themselves and say, I guess all I can do is secure a building or, shoot at something. And they teach you so much more in the military,
right.
especially the Marine Corps, as we know. So in the Marine Corps, I was mortuary affairs. I think they call it PRP now. We went out as a kind of contingent that they were testing, a test group for the
Mhm.
Marine Corps, in a sense, for new MOS. And we were right in the book as we went.
Right.
But we were recovering and processing deceased service members that had fallen on the battlefield. And we were going out in dangerous conditions to recover those people. I learned a lot about biology. I learned
Hmm.
a lot about anatomy. I learned a lot about just search and recovering and how to look at scenes and all of those things. So when I came to the Queens District Attorney's Office, they have a homicide investigations bureau. Now we're consolidated, but it's usually a homicide trials bureau and a homicide investigations bureau. I definitely wanted to be in the homicide investigations bureau because they have this thing called a riding program where they give you an unmarked car, and from the time that the 911 call drops and something happens in Queens County, you go out in that car and you're analyzing the crime scene from start to finish. You're the one who's a liaison between the district attorney's office and the NYPD to kind of figure out what's going on in the case. If you're advising them to make sure that they have probable cause to search certain buildings, certain cars, if search warrants need to be drafted, you're the assistant district attorney that's drafting them. If you need to ping someone's phone,
Right.
you're the assistant district attorney that's drafting the pen registers, providing that you have probable cause. Because police officers, they know the law, but they don't know it as well
Right.
as the lawyer does and the
Right.
prosecutor does. And they also know it to the extent that they can get you the evidence, but the the ADA has to make sure that that evidence is actually admissible at trial.
Absolutely.
So the writing program kind of removes that fog in between. If you have an assistant district attorney or a lawyer on call saying, well, you have probable cause to do this, and you're looking at the facts as a lawyer at trial to
Right.
make sure that you can get this evidence in inevitably at trial, because that's where it counts. If
Absolutely.
the evidence doesn't come in, it's pointless. You
Right.
don't want someone going in and recovering a gun, and then you find out it was recovered unlawfully, and then that's your gun case is dismissed, or your
Right.
indictment is dismissed. So it really kind of merges the gap there, and it allows you to teach the officers right there on scene
Hmm.
how to look at things like a lawyer. So
Yeah.
when they have to go and testify, or they roll up on these scenes, they're thinking now like you, because you've taught them this is what the law is, these are the nuances of what you need and what you don't need. And they're learning the things that you've learned during law school and that you've learned while working. And it just makes for better cases in the
Right.
end. And it's also just a great tool for our office to make sure that if they need to refer back to someone who was at the crime scene, you can be the eyes of the trial assistant who later gets the case to say, well, when I was on the scene, this is what it looked like. These are the
Right.
pictures that I took. These are the witnesses that I spoke to. And it also, my Marine Corps experience, especially with mortuary affairs, having dealt with loss
Hmm.
and dealt with that kind of visceral reaction of just kind of chaos,
Right.
it helps me speak, or it helped me speak to the witnesses on a more real level.
Right.
when you're speaking to law enforcement or lawyers, people are like, you don't know what's going on in the hood. You don't know what's going on in my neighborhood, and how I might be fearful about talking to you later and whatnot. I know those experiences.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in Kingston, Jamaica for a long time.
Right.
I grew up in New York too. I grew up in Virginia. I've bounced around the world, but I understand what loss feels like.
Right.
And I was real with them. I told a lot of those victims and the witnesses, I said, look, it's gonna hurt for a long time.
Right.
It's never really gonna go away, because I've had to deal with PTSD from my experiences.
Right.
And these people are going through a similar thing. They're going through the same thing. And being able to level with them and garner that trust in the beginning allows you to still have them when it comes trial time, because these trials don't happen like they do
Right.
in on TV, like
Right.
30 minutes. You got to find the person who committed this homicide, and you have to go through the whole process, which usually takes a year to 2 years to
Right.
get to even a trial posture. So you have to keep them in the game for 2 years. And people's memories change over 2 years.
Right.
Things happen, people move, and you want to keep a hold on them. So when it's time to prosecute that case and go to trial, you've already garnered that trust. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So I think that's what was so beneficial about me being in that bureau. And I just love being out on the street and running out of my house
Being
at
with
2 in the
the
morning, like,
people.
I'm going to a crime scene. Oh my God. You know,
Right.
after a while, it gets a little dull. It gets a little dull because you have some really bad weekends
Right.
where your phone just doesn't stop ringing and you're
Right.
just like, oh my God,
What is going on?
what's going on? Everybody's hurting each other.
Absolutely. But it's fun. And so, giving my gyms and especially our veterans just piece of advice, making sure that, they utilize all of their assistance, because you use not only the GI Bill, there's voc rehab, there's yellow ribbon, there's all these things. Don't let anybody tell you that you can only use one or you can only use this one and then that's it. Making sure that you know what's in that state and what's available to you, because sometimes each state run differently, especially when it comes to veterans. Some are more veteran friendly than others, and it's just kind of navigating your way through that. So, Jims, it's time for your financial tips. Your financial tips for today are: be prepared for the unexpected, because your budget at any time can be compromised. We saw that with this story. Research your career and find out if there are any free incentives available to receive additional educational credits. Monitor your accounts to ensure you are receiving exactly what is guaranteed to you. Because Ms. Bettis said, hey, I stayed in the office to make sure, excuse you, this needs to come here, this needs to be here this month.
Fight for what's yours.
Absolutely. It's up to us to monitor our accounts, not really up to somebody else. And finally, always have a plan B, C, and D when life throws you financial curveball, because it will. Life will throw you a curveball. I can't tell you how many times plan A did not work. Plan A often really doesn't work for a lot of us. So those are your tips. So Miss Suzanne Bettis, it is customary on this show to ask all of my guests for an inspirational quote. What is your inspirational quote for us today?
So my inspirational quote for everyone and all the gems is a quote from Don Connolly. He says, "It's pointless to set goals if you're not going to try to hit them."
I love it.
I think it's very key that people, I write down my goals every year, 5-year plans, 10-year plans. Sometimes this is what I need to do this week,
Right.
but visualizing it and is key in trying to get to them. So like I said, it's pointless to set goals if you're not going to try to hit them.
We love you. Thank you for sharing your inspirational quote. And thank you for being a phenomenal friend, a guest on this show today, and being part of our journey.
Yay. Thank you for having me. It's been
Thank you. You
amazing
have
fun. And I look forward to the gems, doing more amazing things. I'm so proud of you, Jewel. You and I started this journey together when we were babies. So
baby.
I'm grateful to see you doing so well.
Thank you. And I'm so blessed to always watch you as well. All right, Jim. So creating healthy financial habits is a lifelong journey and commitment. Remember, without change, there'd be no butterflies. You know, that's my favorite quote. Changing habits, changing lives, and changing futures are all up to you. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, Jam.